Hey everyone, Switch to here. This fairy video is going to be about one G5 character that we all have got to know quite well. Opaline Arcana, or just simply known as Opaline. Opaline is a very interesting villain for sure. But we don't know much about her like actual backstory. Only that we know that she started appearing in the first movie and the special one and the Netflix series and the web series Tell Your Tale and some in the comic book series that has at least part of her backstory. Yes, I know that many have said that comics should not be considered as canon, which is true, because back in G4 a lot of comics was not consisted of the original as a canon timeline, which I perfectly agreed. But since the G5 comic book series actually fits perfectly well with the new timeline. But anyways, this video is going to be based on my thoughts, conclusions, and theory of what I think, how, or reason why Opaline hates Twilight that much. And I will brief make of the reason. Well, here's a part of this that's actually appeared in a comic book series of the G5. This core tells the main five that during the time of the years of Twilight's peaceful rule, this wicked unicorn showed up, or at least that turned out to be Opaline. And even as the Twilight also mentioned in her holographic magical hologram that there was this one time a unicorn to try to steal the magic for herself, which is a reference to Opaline. And even though that Twilight was about to say the name, which she was cut off by the static, so anyways, why would suddenly Opaline hate Twilight that much? Why would she want to steal the magic? And why would she want to divide the kingdom once again as they were over 1,000 years earlier? Well, the only thing I could consider as a potentially possibility, knowing that back in G4 ending, we had that Twilight had taken over Celestia's School of Gifted Unicorns, and one of the top students named Luster Dawn, who were Celestia's Twilight's top student. But seen from this point of view, what if that Twilight was going to announce that she's going to take a new personal student? She used to have Starlight as her personal student. But assuming, like, say, if Opaline was a still unicorn but young one, also a student at the School of Gifted Unicorns alongside with Luster Dawn. What if Opaline and Luster Dawn was actually classmates and both were actually really talented in magic? Even though that Opaline had on her agenda that she wanted to have to be as a princess. What if her dream to be a princess and that her dream to be Twilight's personal student? And after she find out that Twilight is gonna take a new personal student, and knowing how herself is very talented, very skilled and knowledgeable about magic, and she is very considerable or very expecting that, or really hopeful, without a doubt, that Twilight would choose her rather than any other ponies. But here's what I think could potentially was the reason what led to Opaline to hate Twilight that much. But before I telling that exactly, knowing how much Luster Dawn was doing her training or studying to be and end up to be reaching as one of the top students, I do believe Opaline did the same thing. She focused a lot of studies and hoping to reach her goal one day. And here's what I think actually happened. When Twilight announced she had decided to pick one student at the school as a personal student, and Opaline was very much sure she was the one being picked. But when Twilight is announcing that her new personal student is Luster Dawn, hearing that must have hurt not only Opaline's self-esteem, confidence, and even her heart. She must have been devastated on knowing that despite how much studying, how much practice on magic and other things that she had done in order to hoping that Twilight would pick her as her personal student. But ever since she found out she wasn't picked, did she leave the school? Well, I doubted it first. Even though despite that Opaline had holding a very much deep grudge towards Twilight, I still believe that was the moment after she found out that she isn't going to be Twilight's personal student when she decided to make her plan for revenge and perhaps overthrown. Because I can only imagine that is the reason when Opaline had her hatred growing side in her heart towards Twilight. But she knows that she had no chance to stand against Twilight now. First, she's the main ruler of a kingdom. 2, she has royal guards in her disposal to protect her. And even at the third thing, Twilight is the powerful alicorn. So those 3 things she may have considered a way to stop this from happening. So I do believe that Opaline did stay behind in the School of Gifted Unicorns to learn more about some powerful spells and in secret planning to revenge against her new enemy, Twilight. And after at some point she may have finished her studying at the School of Gifted Unicorns and left Canterlot. And after some time she returned to Ponyville when she is a little bit older, I mean around, I would say maybe in her early 20s or something. Then she had started to set her plan in motion by starting to divide the kingdom's population by holding the same grudges as their ancestors did way by the time before the foundation of Equestria. If you guys don't remember, before the foundation of Equestria, the ponies, they didn't really trust each other. They had this fragile peace, but eventually they did end up having a peace which lasted for over a millennia. But now when that Opaline's her plans saying that unicorns are way stronger and even had more rights and over Pegasus and Earth ponies and otherwise. And after that, despite her attention, which were devastating, because it didn't take long for the society, used especially in Ponyville, where some establishments like restaurants didn't even allow unicorns in their business. Only only one type of ponies like Earth ponies or even Pegasus. But that was not only one random location. Her dividing of the kingdom was spread the entire country. But that was not the last one of her. That was only like first step in her plan. She had decided to next step was to attack Twilight directly, which she did. But she did lose. She was so in her temporarily defeated. So, but despite her, even though that she did fail and eventually, her succeeded plan did actually worked. Well, at least in parts. Twilight actually was devastated to see one of her top students, Opaline, who was showing so much promise, turning in such a dark way. And I do believe Twilight may have even tried to have a speech, or even tried to convince Opaline what she was done was the absolute wrong answer to do. I do think this could have been as almost perhaps as equal as bad as Discord when he was a bad guy. But I do think that Opaline refused to have any thoughts of being reformed because in her mind reformation is probably the absolute one of the bad reform punishments, so she may just vanished. But the damage that she'd done was already set and done. So Twilight decided to bring all the Equestria's magic into 3 crystals, known as the Unity Crystals. But despite having this much done already, the effect of the devastation was already done. It didn't take long for the opponents to stop to even interact with each other, and that's where when the magic was gone and Equestria was magicless, and how this society divided and grown even from that point on. So you may ask me and think, Switch Diablo, how do you think, or how do you even know any of this could have been potentially what could happen between the reason why Opaline actually hated Twilight? I mean, what if that she actually had another reason to hate Twilight in the first place? Well, that's true. But at the moment, we don't even know any other particular reason why, or that given as a take, given at the time, why Opaline would actually hate Twilight. I mean, it's not unlike there's going to be any other reason. Or maybe that, what if that Opaline just hated Twilight for no reason? What if that she wasn't even as one of her students in the first place at the school that gave the unicorns in Canterlot? What if she was just a random unicorn that actually hated Twilight because she thought that she was deserved to be the ruler instead? But there is only one other thing that some actually would point out. Well, if she was a gifted unicorn, how in the world she even end up as an alicorn if she was a unicorn during the time of Twilight's rule? Well, we don't know exactly, but given the fact that Celestia turned Twilight into an alicorn by a magical spell, and that Flurry Heart, for example, was born as one. So, but I don't think, I mean, if Opaline was a student at the School of Gifted Unicorns, and that she was one of the top students despite not being chosen as to be Twilight's new personal student, it's a possibility likely that despite that Opaline decided to stay at the school to learn more about magic and perhaps to figure out a way to turn herself as an alicorn. I mean, it's possible. Considering what happened, what if she had learned an ancient spell, maybe the same spell that Celestia used on Twilight years ago? But what if she had learned the same spell and used it on herself to transform her into an alicorn, and in the process, quote, when she said to Misty that now she is that she is immortal. But knowing how much of this is, well, it's hard to be saying exactly if that's true, if she is even immortal or not. But anyways, considering how the fact that if Opaline had learned the spell to make herself immortal, which not entirely impossible, but it's just not sure. We don't know much about the information or given the backstory. But given the fact that it's very strong likely that Opaline were actually one of Twilight's students at the School of Gifted Unicorns, and she was talented. Devastated, she was never picked as personal student of Twilight. That may have been the reason why she decided to take a revenge on Twilight. So if you have any thoughts or opinions about this, let me know in the comment section below. And as always, this is Switch Diablo, over and out.